All righty. Good Monday morning to you. I hope you are all doing well this fine Monday morning. Um, as you can see, I'm in a little bit of a different location. And let me turn this down for a second. I'm in a little bit of a little bit of a different location, and but I'm excited to be here. I am up in Toronto and hanging out and up in Toronto, one of my favorite cities of in the entire world. So excited to be here. But the live stream must go on. Every Monday morning, we are here to bring you Win Your Week. Hope you are doing well. My name is Steve Worthy, founder and CEO of Worthy Retail. Super excited to be here with you every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we just provide just a little bit of inspiration and also some thoughts and some tips to actually help you win your week. That's the name of the show. But today's show is dedicated because you know today's date is very significant, um, not just here in the states, but throughout the world. And so I felt that I would be remiss to not talk about 9/11 and some of the impact that it's actually had on me, as a leader and as a retail leader, and some of the lessons learned that I really I want to draw from from everything that happened on 9/11 and some of the leadership things that came out of it that for me I didn't realize. Sometimes something impacts you in a certain way, and you don't really realize how it impacted you until you're actually in the throes of a situation. Nothing's going to be similar to 9/11, but in the throes of a situation where you have to adapt, you have to think differently, and if there's any industry that actually where that is the most prevalent is of course in retail. And so some of the things that I definitely want to talk about today, we have five simple things that I want to address, and I have, of course, as I always do, I have a whole bunch of stories associated with a lot of the things that we are going to be talking about because they're going to be really relevant to you as a retail leader, not just for today, but as you continue to move forward. This is going to be a little different from our regular format. This is our regular format that we use. Of course, we typically do like inspiration, quotes. Have a topic, and then we do, know one thing, ask one thing, and then do one thing. That's our normal format that we typically do. But today we're gonna change it up a little bit as well too. And before we get into the five tips, I just always want to make sure that you check us out every Thursday. Uh, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Thursday, we're going to be talking about three things to do when you give and receive feedback. When you give and receive feedback, I'm telling you right now, um, this, this I always say this. I always say you don't want to miss this one. This one you don't want to miss. I don't sound like an infomercial, but the one thing I have always talked about, and those of you who have listened to me for a while, as I always say, the higher you go, the less feedback you receive, but the more you need. And there are things that you need to do as the person who's giving the feedback after you give the feedback, and then there's something that you need to do as the recipient of that feedback. Like, what do you do with that? What do you do afterwards, right? Because we always want to talk about the actual feedback itself, but like, what do you do afterwards? Because some people it's easy to give feedback, some people it's not. So we want to definitely talk about that and address that because that's something definitely in the retail space. We always want to talk about feedback, but what do you do afterwards and how do you make sure that it's actually effective, as well? Hey, good Monday morning. How are you doing? Good to see you over there, Florence. Good to see you. So, all right. So let's do this. Let me ask this question first. Where were you? Where were you on 9/11? Where were you? I was I was with Caribou Coffee, and I remember this is the interesting part. I think I want to say about a week prior to 9/11, my daughter was visiting. I was living in Atlanta, and my daughter was visiting from New York. And of course, in New York, the schools start later than they did in Atlanta. So I brought her to work. I had to bring her to work day with me, and so she was with me at Caribou Coffee. She was behind the counter doing different things, and then um, I flew her back up to New York, and then about a week later, I was in that very same store that um, that I previously had my daughter in the week before, and um, we had a couple of customers that came in, started talking about something that was taking place. Plane went into the World Trade Center. We were like, "What? What are you? What really?" This is 2001, mind you, right? And so what I did was I actually ended up having my cafe manager go home. They live fairly close, and and grab a TV. I said, "Go grab a TV and bring it back into the shop." So that's exactly what they did. They actually went home, grabbed the TV, and we propped it up. And and I remember this to this day, was that we were literally all watching it, and we saw the second plane go into the World Trade Center. And my mindset, be a former military, of course, I immediately had a couple of assumptions. But where were you? What was going through your mind? I remember driving home. In Atlanta, if you know anything about Atlanta, traffic is ridiculous. The streets were eerily quiet. There was really nobody on the streets. Everybody was, of course, indoors with their families or with their coworkers, as they should have been. But where were you? Put it in the comments if you were looking at this and you have the ability to, put something in the comments. I really would just want to know, like, where were you? And maybe something you were doing. Just keep it simple, because all of us have a story to tell. All of us have something that has from that day that has impacted us. Some of the lessons that I have learned as it relates to, let me just make sure I got this thing set up correctly. This is a new thing I got going on. So here we go. All right, cool. Um, some of the lessons that I've learned that I didn't really think about until I was once again was in the throes of a circumstances was unity and resilience. I was literally just telling this story last night when I was with Target. In Baltimore, we had there was a riot that actually was orchestrated and took place after the death of a young man, and I remember going into that store prior to the riots, and actually being able to connect with the team. I'm not going to talk about approachability because that's a whole nother thing, but the trust that the team had in me to actually be able to tell me, "Hey, Mr. Steve, I think this is what's going to be taking place. I think this is what's going to happen." And I immediately went to my boss, went to my boss's boss. Any of you who are in retail, you know that closing a store takes an act of God. Like it literally does. Like for you to shut down a store, like it takes, like, God has to come down and say, close that store. Um, but I have built up enough equity, if you will, and credibility with my boss and my boss's boss, and even the EVP and COO for them to say, okay, we need to shut down this store. We closed that store, and um, about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later, um, the riots broke out. This was 2000 and oh my gosh, I want to say 2016, maybe 2000, something like that. And the riots broke out. They didn't come into the store. The reason why I wanted to talk about this lesson around unity and resilience is because when we start to think about those circumstances that actually take place that we don't even think about, that are that happen very quickly in our leadership, a lot of times you don't have time to think. You just really don't. You have to act. And we'll talk about that here in a second. The unity was and resilience was around the fact that the team felt secure enough to actually come to me, come to their boss, and have a conversation around what they thought was taking place. The resiliency comes into place, and this is the thing I want to say is that the day after the riots, I drove through Baltimore, East Baltimore. Those of you who are maybe familiar with the movie the show The Wire, um, if you have any kind of just to kind of give you a perspective of what part of Baltimore we're talking about. And I'm driving through. It literally just looks like a war zone. And I get to the store. Nothing happens. They don't break into the store, and because we have police presence there now. But about 30. It's the day after the riots, mind you. 30, maybe 35 team members show up for work that day. And what I mean is that these were team members who were not a lot of them were not on the clock or not scheduled. They were so concerned about their store. They were so concerned about, not so much concerned because of their paycheck. They were so concerned about the store, the physical presence of the store, that a lot of them showed up because they thought that there was going to be cleanup work. They thought there was going to be damage. They thought there was going to be a whole bunch of different things that they were going to have to do. And there wasn't. We didn't have any damage. But what we did realize in that moment, and I remember the store manager, when she saw this outpouring of people come into work, she just started just bawling and just crying, and realized that the culture that she had built within her store. A lot of times you don't realize the work that you're doing because we immediately want immediate results and perspective and different things like that. But when we are putting the work in sort of behind closed doors and when no one else is looking, when those moments of trial and tribulation come, you know who's going to, the people who are down for you, the people who are going to rock with you, right? They will show themselves. And when we start to think about kind of how this relates to you as a retail leader, what are you currently doing? How are you currently connecting with your team? What are you doing to connect with your team? Not so much that you can get an immediate result, but you are actually having the ability that when those trials and those tribulations come, you already have a measure of credibility and connection to your team. That when you want to move forward and when you want to do different things, it doesn't seem like work. And so that's one lesson that I learned, because when you start to think about and tie this back to 9/11, the country unified. There was a resiliency that took place. Didn't matter who you are, didn't matter what you look like. There was a resiliency that took place. And as a leader, how are you developing that unity, that resiliency within your team? It's important for you to do that as well. All right, we have a couple of I have a couple of comments here. I just wanted to make sure. Hold on for a second. This is like I got a new setup here, so I want to make sure that I get it. Thank you, James. I see you in the comments. James says he's coming to watch how the professionals do it. I appreciate that. Hey, Heidi, I had the opening shift of my Target. Oh, did you? Okay. Thank you. All right. It was our first morning home with a new baby. Oh wow! And I had to shield him from the sadness to keep. Oh gosh, yeah. There was a lot. There was a lot of stuff taking place, that day. On 9/11 and in the days to come. I lost a good friend there as well too. All right, number 2, crisis management. Crisis management. Let me just put this up. So here's the thing with I'm gonna use Target again for this situation. So in 2013, we had I don't know if you guys remember, but we had a credit card breach in 2013 at Target. There was a massive like credit card breach. And I remember when I was in grad school, I took a class um, around crisis management, and our CEO Greg Steinhoffel at the time did an amazing job. I felt an amazing job of handling that crisis. He did three things, and and I want you to get this too. Three things that he did that when you start to think about where you are as a retail leader, when a crisis happens or occurs, a lot of times you don't think about it. You just you tend to act. But there are three things that he did extremely well that I want you to understand, um, and be able to put into your toolbox like right now. So one thing he did three things. He did an assessment. He prepared, and then he responded. So the assessment piece is, how bad is it, right? And you have to be brutally honest. Whenever you're in a crisis, whenever you're in a situation that is new to you, you have to be brutally honest. How bad is it? Like, who's impacted and how much are they impacted? Right. A lot of times when we think about a crisis, um, we want to not we want to lessen the impact from a perspective and also from a verbal standpoint. We want to lessen the impact, and we want to just make it seem like everything's okay. No, it's going to be okay. Listen to me. You have to be brutally honest. You have to understand and communicate how bad is it to the breadth and depth of it. He did an amazing job of that preparation. Preparation in the context that you are going to have questions, right? If there's anything that we saw, regardless of your political affiliation, we did see a president that stood up and was prepared, and he anticipated questions. He didn't have really any type of corporate speak. He just spoke out of the abundance of the circumstances and what people really truly wanted and needed to hear at that point in time. So regardless of how you that's not even what I'm here to talk about. It is just, how do you prepare and um, what you're going to say and anticipate the needs of your audience, because they're going to have questions, and your job is to be able to articulate what's, again, the impact, how they were impacted, what does this mean for them, right? What's next for them as well. And then the last thing he did was, of course, was respond, right? Tell it all, good, bad, and the ugly, right? You have to respond. You have to articulate what happened, how it was impacted, and then what is going to be your response. What are you going to do now as a result of this? What are you going to maybe potentially change in how you lead? What are you going to potentially change in the direction that you want to take your company, your store, or even because in a moment you're not thinking about the lessons learned, but you have to think about what are you going to, what is going to be your response to alleviate some of the concerns or mitigate some of the concerns that the impacted people have. So you have to make sure that you actually do that. So the three things from a crisis management standpoint is assess, prepare, and then response. All right, let me see. Let me know if you have any questions or anything that's out there. I think I'm gonna, or comments, please let me know. No worries. If not, I just want to make sure that this is vital. Big picture. All yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Lesson number three. Uh, Adaptability. Um, eh, One of the major issues that I see in a lot of leadership is the inability to adapt, inability to um, be flexible in your response, and then the next level of action that needs to be taken. And in retail, this is why it's extremely important for you to be able to be adaptable. And here are some things around adaptability that the best leaders know and understand. Sometimes your best plans just don't work. You have to be flexible, but here's the main thing, is that you have to be able to listen to your team. You don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. You have to surround yourself with smart people. You have to surround yourself with people who are okay with being unfiltered, right? We talked about this in several of our Thursday morning live audio rooms around self-awareness. Is around, it's around your why, but it's also around your response. How do you respond in a certain circumstance? And you don't want people to respond from a filtered standpoint. You want people to respond from an ability that they can literally kind of let their hair down and be okay with giving you sort of that real talk that you need. That when you're able to get that information, that helps you become more adaptable, right? It's, you don't just adapt for adaptability's sake. You adapt based out of the information that you receive, because when you receive more information, now you're actually able to do other things. But the issue that is that retail leaders, they don't take in information, so they are just responding out of what they know and what they think is right, which is, and I get it. I've done the same thing. But the more information that you take in from your team, the more decisions and options and perspectives that you have. And now adaptability becomes that much easier. And I talk about it in the context of, right, so I'm writing the book, the Approachable Retail Leader. And we have a framework, of course. It's a SMILE framework. The M stands for mindful listening. And I talk about this in the book, is around, you are at different levels with different people all the time. And your ability to adapt to one person or the next has to be seamless, right? And so the only way that I was able to adapt was because I took in so much information from my team. I was able to understand a little bit more about who they were, so I can adapt and change my conversation very seamlessly. So it's the same thing. The adaptability comes out of the overflow of information that you receive, from your team as well too. Love this topic because many ignore lesson two. Agreed, agreed, agreed. And she's talking about the crisis management. 100%, 100%. And so the lesson three was around adaptability. I want to talk real quick before we move into lesson 4 and 5. I got time. Before we move into lesson 4 and 5, I wanted to really briefly touch upon this conference that's actually taking place starting next week. Super excited about it because I am actually a speaker for this conference next week, and it is the Rise Up Retail Summit. There are tons and tons of retail conferences out there, but there aren't any that I have seen, except for this one, that is solely dedicated to retail leaders, helping retail leaders kind of grow, develop, and understand more about who they are so that they can grow and expand their knowledge. So as you can see, we have an amazing list and group of retail leaders who are going to be speaking on various topics. I am going to be speaking on approachability, and how do we utilize approachability to get the most out of yourself, but also for your team. I'm telling you, approachability is a game changing perspective that we need to embrace and we need to understand more about. So I'm going to be breaking down our SMILE framework next week. So make sure you can go to retailu.com, .ca, and I think there should be a link also in the comments, from this event, and you can go ahead and register. There still should be an early bird special there as well too. So make sure that you go ahead and get that. I'm really excited to be speaking. We have some amazing people that are actually going to be speaking about a whole bunch of different topics as well. Of course, April Sabrell, and then Kimberly Lee Minor. I can't wait for their sessions as well. So it's going to be an amazing opportunity for a lot of people to kind of learn, grow from a retail leadership perspective. So make sure you get your tickets now at Rise Up Retail Summit. Starts next week on the 19th as well. All right. Let's go real quick. What did before I move into the next one? We had a comment. Being adaptable. Being adaptable is for you to bring out the best in your associates. Yep. So many think their associates must be oh, don't get me going down that rabbit hole. That's a good one. We, the leader, must adapt to associates. Thanks. Here's okay. I gotta go down. I gotta go down that. I gotta go down that hole for a second. Or that rabbit hole. Um, and I learned this years ago from John Maxwell. And he talks about a locomotive train, right? So how many of us have seen a locomotive train, and it's going down the tracks, and there are all the different um, uh, uh, um, I don't even know what you call them, all the different carts or cars that are attached to the locomotive train, right? He said, how did those carts get attached to the locomotive train? The locomotive train has to get on the track, and then it has to back up, and it has to connect, and then it moves forward. Those carts don't have any energy in and of themselves, right? They're full of product, supplies, or whatever it may be. But the leader, the locomotive train, has to back up, connect, and then move forward. I love that analogy because when I think about leadership, a lot of the tendency is that we are the locomotive train, and we think that people just have to kind of, like, as we move, they have to kind of come at and then move and connect. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to go back and connect with each and every time to each and every person, right? Each and every person differently. Because here's the other thing that I love about this analogy, and it literally just came to me, is because each one of those carts are going in a different direction. And as a leader, one of these carts may be going to Chicago. One of these carts may be going over here. Their final destination could be completely different. But as a leader, if you are going back and connecting with them, you are helping them get to their final destination, right? Ooh, that's for somebody out there. I gave you that one for free. That one was for free. I'm not even going to charge you for that one. That was a really good one. That was for free. I'm just joking with you. All right, lesson four. Lesson four. I want to get my notes up here too, because I have a couple of things I want to say about this one. Okay, here's I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna give you some gold right now. Give you some gold. When I visit the store, when I visit stores and I can talk to my team, there are two things that I'm looking for. There are only two things. Yes, there are two things that I'm looking for. There are systemic and non-systemic issues. Understand that. There are systemic issues and there are non-systemic issues. When you walk in the store, there are those things that a store can fix before you even leave the store. An end cap that's busted, and they can drop down product to fix that end cap. That's not a systemic issue. We're looking for systemic issues, things that have been broken for a while: in stock issues, talent issues, communication issues, follow up issues, execution issues, logistic issues. Those are the systemic issues that need to be addressed, that take some time. Those are the ones that I am mainly concerned with as a multi-unit leader, and you also as a store manager. Sometimes I know we get so focused in on the non-systemic, the day-to-day issues, but how are you addressing the systemic issues? And the reason you can do this is because the details matter. The details in how you operate and how you see a problem and how you approach a problem, the details matter. And how why I wanted to tie this to the circumstances of 9/11 is because after 9/11, there were a whole bunch of details that people noticed but didn't say anything about, or there were some things that were potentially missed that if we had a little bit more adaptability and possibly listened a little bit more to our team, we would have been able to adapt and react potentially differently, right? Hindsight is always 20/20, but the details around around how you lead and how you communicate matter. It is extremely important for you to understand the variance and the variations around systemic and then non-systemic issues. The other side of this, I'm going to give you this one for free too. There are what I want to say, three levels of notes. And this all goes back into the non-systemic versus systemic issues. There are store level notes, there are multi-unit level, district, regional, whatever level notes, and then there are corporate notes. And what do I mean by that? Store level notes are the ones that are like the non-systemic. Hey, let's go ahead and get those things done quickly, right? They could be some systemic issues. District level notes are the ones that, hey, you know what? Everybody else is on this process, and you're not. Why? What do you talk? What's the problem? Corporate notes are higher level communications around competition, data literacy, um, succession planning, right? These are the notes that I'd always love to talk about. I can't get to, a lot of times I couldn't get to these notes, to this conversation, was because I was so focused in on the visit note, the store level notes, or the district level notes. As a retail leader, what level of notes does your leader give you? Are you having bigger, broader communication, around bigger issues, or are they constantly, digging you out of the store level, non-systemic issues within your market or within your store? What does that look like? How are they helping you with that? I want to see if I had any notes, any comments in here, as well too. So this setup's just a little bit different for me. I just want to see if anybody left anything, over here on LinkedIn. But no, okay, I guess we're not. We're good. I guess we're good to go. All right. So how many people are actually doing that? How many of you? What level of notes are you receiving? Is it store level notes? Is it district level notes, or is it corporate level notes? The details around how you operate and how you communicate matter for you and also for your team as well too. All right, last one, because I want to make sure I be respectful of your time as well. This last one, it's just the power of leadership. It is just it's simply that, and your presence as a leader matters. Leadership is tough. Like I always say, if I have a running joke that I always say, leadership would be easy if it wasn't for the people, right? Right? But you really wouldn't believe it. You really wouldn't be leading. My good friend Sylvia Olat, we talked about leadership. She's like, definition of a leader is that you have followers, is that people are literally following you, right? You can't you how can you lead something when no one wants to follow you and no one wants to kind of, um, go where you're going or go where you want to take them? Are you really a leader? Right? You could be a positional person, you can have some authority, but are you truly, truly leading? So the power of leadership, we saw it, come out of 9/11, not just, um, from whether it's our president or whoever. We saw it from just a lot of people. We saw it just from a lot of individuals, you know, understanding that like this is a time to lead. This is a time to step up. This is a time to act. This is a time that our presence, and I wrote some of these things down, is that our presence matters. I'll go back to the first story that I told you around, the riot that took place, right? Um, I truly knew and understood the importance of my presence, right? I could have easily, went to that store and said, okay, all right, you guys have it, and left and went to another store, let them close the store, let them, handle it. But no, I stayed there, um, until the very end. I brought carts in from the outside. Um, I, helped board up the windows. I did, all those different things. And wasn't because I wanted to be seen. It was like, no, the team mattered. My presence as a leader mattered to that team. And so, what does your presence look like as a retail leader? Are you in your office as a multi-unit leader? How many stores do you visit the stores that you like? Right? Okay. Can I just say this? I'm gonna let this. I'm gonna. There were moments. There were moments in my time in my life that, man, there were stores that I didn't want to go to because I honestly, can I just be very real with you? I just didn't like the leader. I always like I always got to keep it real with you guys. These are the things no one's gonna tell you about. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't really want to go to that store because I really can't stand that person. I can't stand their presence. Right? Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Right? But guess what I did? I ended up going to those stores. I ended up figuring out that it wasn't maybe so much them, it was me. It was, how can I lead that person differently? How can I show up differently for that person as a leader? How do I adjust my leadership, right? Back to that analogy, how do I back up as a leader, connect, and then move forward? So it's important as a leader to understand. It's important as a leader for you to understand what that looks like for you and as an organization. Because if you don't do that, no, wrong thing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to plug some stuff up here, and to make sure that we don't lose power. All right, go. I am good. How do we make sure that our presence is there, right? Even in moments of uncertainty, your presence as a retail leader, it needs to be there. Your presence and understanding and ability to act matters. It really matters. All right. So those are just five lessons that I wanted to once again dedicate everything to, and for 9/11, not just New York, but we had so many things that of course happened in DC and the different flights, and I wanted to make sure that I don't know, I wanted to change up a little bit and present some of these ideas that have been in my head around lessons learned from 9/11, and what can you do differently as a retail leader to win your week. How can you go through and understand unity, resilience, crisis management, adaptability, the details matter, and then lastly about the power of leadership. How do we take these things and utilize them into the day, into your week? So if you're looking at this on the replay, or if you're thinking about this, you're looking at this right now, and you have the ability, I would love to just hear, like, what's one of these lessons that caught your attention. What's one of these lessons that you are like, oh, I wish I could do this one a little bit differently, or I never thought about this one that way. I just really would like to know. Just put that in the comments, and I just appreciate you actually being able to kind of share that with everybody as well. All right. Once again, this Thursday at 11 a.m. I always forget to change this. It's 11 a.m., not 1 p.m. I got to change that as soon as I get off this thing. I'm changing that one to make sure. 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be talking about three things to do when you give and receive feedback. I'm telling you, our Thursdays are because they're just on LinkedIn, so I can play music, and they are a vibe. And I know the word vibe and retail and live audio don't necessarily go together, but they are literally a vibe, and we have fun, and I'm able to really provide some really content that um, we talk about in the context of having those unspoken conversations. For the retail leader, that's exactly what we do. Those are the things that we talk about 100%. I just want to make sure that I got that. Hey, Scott, how are you doing? He for the store versus corporate notes. Good one. Entire discussion right there. We chat next week. Exactly. Exactly. If you think I'm going to talk about um, an experience gap, you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, that's I appreciate that, Scott. I appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, that's that. I'm telling you, when I was able to teach my team around the difference in the level of notes, um, um, it was a game changer for them, and also their ability to communicate differently, right? Because you have to communicate your business, and at what level are you communicating your business on, right? The only way that you're going to be able to communicate at a higher level is to execute on a level the previous level. If you're executing on a previous level, then now you can actually talk about the next level, and so on and so forth. So it's just always just helped them kind of get a different perspective on who they were and where they are and where the store in their market was as well. So excellent. All right, good people. Good to see you. Thank you once again. Take some of these lessons, implement them, talk to your team about them. Well, I would love to hear some of your thoughts as well too. All right. Once again, I am Steve Worthy, founder and CEO of Worthy Retail. You've been seeing, of course, the scrolling Worthy Retail news. Of course, you've probably seen the QR code. That is a direct connection to our newsletter. Would love to have you be part of that newsletter and to get some more of that content, and we can continue the conversation around all these topics and unspoken conversations from a retail leadership standpoint. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great day, and God bless.